Hi everybody, Ken here. Just wanted to do an update to what I've been working on in my shop lately. This is the second iteration of my GlyphShark goggles. You guys may have seen my previous video where I showed you how I built the first set of GlyphShark goggles. This is them, and you can see it's a Fatshark shell with Glyph optics. And for those of you that aren't familiar, this is the Avegant Glyph, which is a 720p goggle that we use for FPV that has these gigantic earmuffs that are not a fan favorite, as you might say. The optics of this are really good, however, so people have been using it with the Connex ProSight system because it's one of the best options for that. However, it's been a real challenge for me to create my own set of 720p goggles by taking the optics module out of the Glyph and putting it into a Fatshark shell. This is half of it, because it doesn't fit that easily, and the optics module isn't even the hardest part. The hardest part is that there's a circuit board in here with a rounded edge. You can see the HDMI input here and the USB connection, and that circuit board, which I have right here, I'll zoom in so you can see, this circuit board right here is kind of tough to deal with. This is the original switch here. There's an audio jack here, HDMI cable, and USB cable. And in my previous project, what I did was I took that circuit board and I stuck it here in the bottom of the Fatshark shell, and so the HDMI cable and USB cable kind of hang out the side. And I rewired it to have my own switch here for on-off function, and I even snuck a little switch in here for the battery checker, and you can see the result of that through this little hole where the original LED on the circuit board is found. And because of the challenges of fitting the optics into the Fatshark shell, I had to add this entire section here at the top and create my own new sliders and things, and I had to modify the faceplate to move the fan up to clear this new shelf that I made in here. It was really kind of a challenge. And this is the stock, not this one. This runs the fan, so now I have two batteries here. Not a huge deal, but still two batteries. This being the original Glyph battery in black heat shrink there, still hardwired in, and then I would just take this little 2S battery and stick it in here to run the fan. And so I've made some improvements to what is going to be the second iteration of this, but I will say this works perfectly. The optics with the Fatshark shell is brilliant. The fan provides the necessary fog reduction if needed. It fits just like a regular Fatshark goggle does, and it's approximately the same weight, and it works perfectly fine for me. I created a little strain relief here because this HDMI connection, and I'm sure actually any micro HDMI connection is probably not designed to have continuous connect and disconnect, so I provide a little strain relief here that just keeps the pulling off of that micro HDMI cable. But this has been working perfectly for me overall, and I'm very happy with it. But curiosity was killing me, and I wanted to see if I could create another version. So what I've done is I've tried to eliminate most of the interfaces to this circuit board so that I could get it into the Fatshark shell a little bit more easily. And so what I've done is I've taken apart the existing switch. I did that last time, but I did it here again, and I've wired in my own switch here, which in this case is in one of the doors. I have powered it this time from a Fatshark battery, so it will fit into the head strap just the way the normal setup will, and I've even got a power plug here that's going to mount in the stock location. And I think this is an advantage over using the Glyph stock battery for two reasons. One, it's a common plug that everybody has. Even if you don't like the stock Fatshark battery, there are aftermarket options, or now they even have the 18650 option that you can use. But with a step-down converter, I can run the Glyph off of the voltage that it expects. Basically, the stock LiPo is a 1S LiPo, so I can dial that voltage. This is an adjustable regulator. I can dial the voltage into exactly what makes the Glyph happy, and it seems to run fine off of that. It's not direct battery voltage. It is a switched regulator, but it seems to be okay. So I removed the audio jack because I don't need that anymore. I'm not going to be using the USB connection anymore because previously that was used to charge the battery. Well, the new Fatshark battery has its own USB connector. And the second reason I wanted to use this battery is because of this little voltage indicator. It's so nice to be able to just click this whenever you want and see what the battery voltage is. You don't have to turn the Glyph on and then press the battery checker switch, and you know when the battery's going dead at a glance. With a stock Glyph, it's actually, all it does is beep once and then it goes black, and it can be a little bit startling to lose video if you're not realizing that your stock Glyph battery is going dead. And it's not like it displays the battery voltage in the OSD or something, so it's not super trivial of a problem to solve. So in this second iteration of my GlyphShark, I've eliminated the use of the stock micro HDMI connector by adding a pigtail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right angle connector, which you can see I had to pare it down, take off the casing so it would fit in the Fatshark case, but basically I've got a full-size HDMI connector that's going to fit into the Fatshark shell in the stock location, and I've routed it out a little bit so it can fit the standard HDMI connector. So basically I don't need the USB. I'll have the HDMI coming out to the Fatshark shell on a pigtail so that it'll be more robust and won't put stress on this stock HDMI micro connector. And again, I don't need the little status LED here because I'm not using it for anything anymore. I suppose if you wanted to do a Bluetooth update, you would need that. However, I don't think I'm going to need to update this anymore. The Avegant company is moving on from the Glyph, and I don't think there are going to be any more software updates coming out. And I haven't had any issues with the current software that I'm using, so I don't plan to do any upgrades in the future. And in fact, because of that, I even removed the Bluetooth module. This module hangs off the back of the OEM Glyph circuit board internally here. And on a whim, I took it off and powered it up and to see if it would work. It works just fine without the module. And that's a good thing for me because it provides a little bit more room inside the Fatshark case for this circuit board, which will now sit in here just like that. And these wires are so thin and tiny. I'm super careful with them all the time as I'm playing around with this. But basically, all this is going to stick in here like this, sandwich in here like this, and then the case goes over the top just like that. Now I do need to provide a cutout at the bottom for the optical modules frame here, but it clears the nose. It's fine. Now I do need to make a little piece of plastic to cover that, and that's fine. I'll do that. The other thing I've done here is I've used the IPD sliders from the Fatshark setup, and I've created a little linkage system here, which is just, it's very simple, just a piece of music wire and a couple of screws, and it basically connects into these little pieces of tubing that I put on the ends of the circuit board on each side of the Glyph optical module, so that you can see I can use that to move the IPD in and out. And so basically, as this thing turns, if I can even get my finger on it, as this turns, this linkage moves in and out and pushes in and out that module like this. And it works just fine. When I put this together, I slide these two little linkages. Let me zoom back out. When I put this together, I slide these two little linkages down into those little blue tubes, and now I can adjust the IPD with the stock Fatshark sliders. Lastly, what I've done here, and I have this on some ESD safe plastic bag, so apologize for that. But what I've done here in order to reduce the height and avoid having to create an additional shelf up here like I did with my original GlyphShark, what I did is I did what they actually do this on the stock Glyph. If you look at the stock Glyph, I don't know if I can show it that well, it's hard to see, but basically in relation to the ear cups, they've got the optics at an angle, a slight angle. And I said, well, hey, I can do that too, and that'll give me the ability to bring the optics at the right level vertically to fit the Fatshark shell without having to cut away the top. And that avoids having to create a new fan, because as you can imagine, if I move that top shelf up, I had to cut all this off and move the fan up and glue, make new pieces and custom this and custom that. It was really kind of a pain. This is the V2 faceplate, by the way. They changed the way the air flows into the eye cup areas a little bit, and it's got this vinyl covered foam. But anyway, so I moved the optics to be at a slight angle. Let's see if I can illustrate that. You can see the optics are at a slight angle there. You look relative kind of kind of like that, but that allows it to fit in the shell without having to modify the shell nearly as much. Basically all I had to do to these shells was cut a hole for the frame here and for the circuit board, which then gets covered over by a piece of plastic. Again, most of that sticks out away from the nose, so it's not a clearance problem. Maybe some people might have big enough noses that it would get in the way. I'm not really sure. I'm just testing it on myself. I've got a little bit of a big nose, but not huge. But so basically, what I've been able to do is use the shell just in hollowed out form. You can see I do have to get in here with a Dremel and remove some of the plastic in here to provide clearance. There's a lot of features in the stock shell to provide mounting points for the various stock components, and I have to remove that. But that takes literally 10 minutes, maybe, pretty easy. And on this one, I did create a little mounting surface with a couple of screws tying into some stock mounting points for the Glyph optics here, and that just sort of holds this in place until the other part of the shell gets on, and then it's kind of confined in there, and it really has nowhere to go. So anyway, that's just a quick update on where I stand with this project, and pretty soon I should have this kind of all buttoned up, and we'll be able to take a look at the kind of final product, minus maybe the doors. We're gonna have to stuff all this wire in there and do a couple of final details, but I'm getting really close to the end of the project, so stay tuned. Thanks.